Okay, and now we ought to be recording. So welcome to the February 2016 Alaska State Library Tech Talk. It's our next to last Tech Talk before we move into our brand new Kashagiroff building. My name is Daniel Cornwall. I'm the Internet and Technology Consultant with the Alaska State Library. And I wanted to let you know that there are going to be additional resources at the guide at the address on the slide, which is lam.alaska.gov/magazine shelf. There will be a section of a copy of the recording on the guide as soon as it's available, as well as a copy of the slide and several other tips. If you haven't already, please click on the little chat bubble at the top right-hand part of your screen. That'll open up the chat window. And as you have questions, if you just go ahead and type them into chat, feel free to interrupt me at any point along the way, and there will also be additional time for questions at the end. And this is going to be a mix of slides and live demos, and if there's time, we can do more exploring later. So, my learning objectives for you for this talk is be able to identify full-text magazines that your patrons find of interest, give them an idea of what format that they might want to read in, and this will be dependent on bandwidth, I think. Give you the way to find a permanent link to the magazine, and while the learning objective says how to put it in your website, if you customize your library's public internet terminals, you can also embed links to the magazines here as well. And then I'm going to close with just providing a few tips on how you can make a somewhat browsable experience, kind of replicate the experience of a paper journal where you turn pages. The default EBSCO product isn't really completely smooth about that. They do offer one that is terrifically expensive, but it turns out there are ways that you can do workarounds within the basic EBSCOhost environment to give browsability. So basically, they're trying to put the experience of walking up to a shelf of magazines and looking through them and put that into an electronic environment. And hopefully your serial shelves look a little more elegant than ours, but this is a picture of our soon-to-be-gone serial section in the State Office building in Juneau. We're going to have a different type of serial display in the new building. And I do promise this isn't one long plug for the Kashagiroff building. But if you do come to Juneau after May, I hope you'll come and visit. So I'd like to take a couple of quick polls about your library and patrons. Let me go ahead and open the first one, which would be about how you feel about your library's bandwidth. And you should see the poll in front of you now. And if you don't, please let me know. The question is what best describes your library's bandwidth situation? And A, as patrons are able to do everything easily. B, patrons can do basic web browsing and email and other stuff is slow. And C is if you need to open up tax forms or government reports or other PDFs, you better go get some coffee first. Okay. So I see Suzanne is not able to see the poll. If anyone is, if you could type that into chat. Change individual responses. Oh. Okay, you might be able to see the poll now because it turns out that I had to open the poll first. WebEx is still relatively new software to us, so we haven't fully kicked all of the tires yet. So now that you do have the poll, if you go ahead and offer some responses, and it looks like most of you have already. Okay, and it looks like that the most popular answer, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll now since it looks like most of you have gotten to it. And I will share the results. So it looks like, did the results show up for you? That basically people seem to have the basics. So that might have a bearing on what type of text that you want to offer. The next one that we want to do is give your best guess as to what percentage of your patrons have home internet access. And the reason that I included this question is that as you think about your community, if most people have home internet access, it's probably a great idea to have a virtual magazine shelf on your web page. And if your library is the only source of internet in your community, then it's probably the better have it in-house. But it's appearing like most people have communities where there's significant percentages. So that's excellent. It means that you'll be able to put the information to use here. And then if I could do okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll and then offer the results again, and it'll be in just a few moments. Okay. So it looks like you're coming from communities that do have home internet access. And let me do one last poll. Okay, why are you not moving? And actually, rather than opening up a formal poll, if you could just put into chat whether your library actually has a website currently, and if it doesn't and you happen to be going to ACLA and want a website, Tracy and I and Amy Carney, our division webmaster, are going to be doing a all-day pre-conference on setting up a website. Okay, great. So you have something to post to, so that's excellent as well. So in terms of magazines, EBSCOhost, our main provider of magazines and journals, does have tens of thousands of titles to choose from, but only some of them have full text. And it's probably a no-brainer that you only want to link to on your browsing shelf, you only want to link to magazines where people can actually pull up full text. And the two flavors of full text that you have that we'll look at in just a moment are HTML and PDF. And PDF is nice for two reasons. One is that it looks like a reproduction of the magazine, and in most cases it even reproduces the color in the magazines. So if PDF is available, it gives you a more real-world reading-like experience. The downside, and let me go ahead and move on, the other type of, so the HTML text, and I have a display of an article here, is pretty much just the text of the article. Now, if an article has photos, usually EBSCO will make a note of it. It'll like say there's a color photo at this portion of the article, but it won't actually show it. Those photos will show up in the PDF version. Now, if you don't have a whole lot of bandwidth to go around, then it's beneficial to you to only have the HTML text. But if it works for you, and I'd give it a try just to see how the experience is. As you can see here, the PDF version of the very same article, Rolling in the Deep, has photos and has a much more paper-like feel to it. Any questions about the different kinds of text? And the reason why I'm talking about bandwidth is just PDFs are kind of like pictures of the articles, and so the file sizes are correspondingly larger. Okay, so here's an overview of the selection process that we will actually step through in just a moment. The first one is you need to go to a database, and our primary vendor for journals is EBSCO. They also have durable links, permanent links to their journals and magazines, so that's why we're pushing EBSCO. For most consumer-grade stuff, I'm suggesting Master File Premier, which you can get to if you go to the SLED page and then SLED databases and then scroll down to Master File Premier. If you want to offer more academic journals, you might consider going into Academic Search Premier. And then every journal in EBSCO has a publications page, which has a link which you then post to your web page. So moving on, once you're in an EBSCOhost database, and again here for this example we're in Master File Premier, you want to go up to Publications, which is going to be in the upper left-hand corner. Won't have the big friendly floating blue arrow next to it. And then once you go to the Publications page, you get this slightly confusing two search boxes. You want the second search box. The top search box actually searches Master File Premier itself, so you won't get journal pages out of it. Now, for this example, I put in Consumer Reports and asked it to give me an alphabetical list. So we have a number of titles here, and the first one says Consumer Reports, and in the results list it says what kind of text it has. And the very first title has both PDF text, which is the more real-world looking like version, and it has HTML text. And so some only have PDF text, like if we go down to the second from the bottom, Consumer's Guide to Experts, that's only PDF text. So if you had a really slow internet connection, you probably wouldn't want to link to this one because the PDF files would be clunky to pull up. There are other titles that only have HTML full text. And then finally, like this Consumer's Digest at the very bottom, it doesn't have any little icons indicating PDF or HTML full text. And that means that it doesn't have any full text at all. So you would only see the article citations from anything in Consumer's Digest. which can be helpful if you're doing interlibrary loan, but in terms of a browsable reading shelf, it just doesn't really work out well. Let's pretend that we clicked on the top one, the publication details for consumer reports. On the left-hand side is stuff about the publisher, and on the right-hand side are the issues and the little share button. And for finding links to embed either in your public computer start page or on your website, you're going to want to click the share button. Once you do, you will get this box, and what we're looking for, the heart of this particular presentation, is the persistent link. And that's what you want to copy and paste. Now, if you happen to have your own proxy server, like I know Juno Public does, you're going to want to change this URL a little bit, but go ahead and talk to me later offline. But for most people, you're just going to want to go ahead and click in this box and copy it, and we'll actually do a brief demo of that very shortly. Any questions about finding a link to a persistent search or knowing whether a journal has full text or not? So Bree asked about the path on SLED. Let me go ahead and switch to sharing my web browser. So we go to the main SLED page. And are people seeing the SLED page? Let me just make sure of that before I move on. Okay, great. Thank you. So from the SLED page, we want to click on SLED databases in the gray area here. And then we get the A to Z list, and what I did was I scrolled down to Master File Premiere, which is right here. And then I'm at the screen that you wanted. So SLED databases, Master File Premiere, and then going up to the top of the screen, I'm clicking on Publications, and then it's the second box down here that you would actually want to search. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing now. Okay. And now, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to briefly do a search for, well, I've got the link set up already, and then I'm going to pop it into my website just for an example. So now I need to share my desktop. So here I've pretended that I've done a search for consumer reports, and I've gotten to the consumer reports page. Can everyone see that? Yes, no, maybe? Okay, great. So now I am clicking on the share button, and then I'm just going to, I clicked inside the persistent link to search, and now I'm going to right click, and I'm copying it. And now it just so happens that I happen to have my virtual magazine shelf page, and are people seeing that? Should be seeing a page now that says virtual magazine shelf. Okay, so and the shelves have been part of my life for almost 20 years, and it's going to be really weird going to our new building in April and not seeing that exact same setup anymore. So on my page, towards the bottom, I've done this particular page up in WordPress. If you've got a different kind of hosting system, your details are going to vary. But in this case, I'm signed in already, and I have a little edit button down here, which I'm going to go ahead and click, which will bring me to my WordPress specific window. And now all I have to do is just click in this list. I'm going to put it under astronomy, consumer reports, and then I'm going to highlight consumer reports, click on the insert link, again specific to WordPress. Although if you use Blogger or several other different kinds of ways to set up your web pages, you're going to have a very similar functionality. Add in my link. Go ahead and view the page outside of WordPress. Then I have to update it, of course. Then I'm going to view my page. Here it is. Click on Consumer Reports, and it brings me back to the page. So now I want to talk a little bit about the reading experience. And I think I have slides on this, but I think as long as we're already sharing the website, I will go ahead and, where did it go? Okay. I will go ahead and do it live from here. So your patrons are on this publication screen. To actually get to an issue, we want to click on a year, and that's going to reveal 3 issues so far for 2016. And now I'm going to click on the March 2016 issue, and then that's going to bring me to a results list. Now, there's an interesting difference between the HTML text and the PDF text other than the formatting. If I go ahead and click Feeling Right at Home, if I click on the HTML text, I get this page, and it's pretty much just by itself. I'm only seeing this particular article, and if I want to move on to the next article, I have to go back to my result list, which it's above the title. I'm going to go ahead and click on the results list, and then go back to the list of articles, and that's, possible, but kind of tedious. People could browse this list and click on the articles of interest to them, but it's not really a browsing experience. And for example, I got the EBSCO version of Library Journal, and for a while I wasn't really particularly reading it in electronic format, just because this was kind of tedious. But then I learned that if you click into the PDF full text, which I'm going to do now for the Feeling Right at Home, excuse me. So we have, can people still hear me? Okay, thank you. My phone started beeping, and it's tied into the computer, so I was starting to wonder. So now we have the article on the right-hand side, but in the left-hand column, we have a link to pretty much all of the PDF articles in this issue. So right now, it may be a little hard to see for you, but the 1 to 5 is highlighted. So we have the Feeling Right at Home, your feedback, and if you notice, there's page numbers next to it. So if I click on your feedback, we switch to page 6, and then if I wanted to say building a better thinking world, but just as well, I click on that. It jumps me to page 8. And then if I want to go deeper into the issue, instead of the 1 to 5 highlighted, let's click on the 11 to 15. And then we see that my articles are coming from page 16 or page 20. Let's go ahead and have a quick look at Get in the Groove. Which turns out to be about driveways. But what I'm getting at here is that it's a much more browsable experience than picking an HTML article, reading it, going back to the results list, picking another one. So I think that if you have the bandwidth to support it, meaning that the PDF files load up pretty quickly, I think that this is going to be a honestly decent way of browsing a magazine. And to go back to the library journal example again, once I realized that I could select the PDF version of any article and then read it from cover to cover, that's actually what I started doing. Well, we're busy enough around here that's more like skimming from cover to cover. But I really actually started paying attention to it again, whereas when it was just a list of results, it wasn't that appealing to me. So let me go ahead. Do we have any questions about this particular display? Thank you. Bree asked, does the library have access only to the subscriptions that they pay for in hard copy? And the answer to that is no. You have access to all of the subscriptions in EBSCOhost. The state buys EBSCOhost for you and puts it on SLED, and so all of the tens of thousands of journals in full text are available to every library in Alaska, and it's available to every Alaskan resident at home. So while I wouldn't encourage somebody to cancel a hard copy subscription that was wildly popular, partly because EBSCO sometimes adds titles and drops titles, but for things that are like somewhat popular or things that are like really popular in winter where it's hard to get to the library, you wouldn't necessarily need to have a library copy as long as it was in EBSCO. Does that make sense? And does anyone have other questions before we pop back into the PowerPoint where I think I only have another slide or two? Okay, let me go ahead and stop sharing it for now. I'm very happy to do more if questions come up later. And let's see. And the screenshots of how to do the reading are in a document on the LibGuide for this class that was on the first slide, but I'll drop it into chat again in just a moment. Okay, so we're basically at the end of my prepared material, and I'm just taking a moment to retrieve the address of the LibGuide for this course. And I'm putting it into chat now. So, any questions or thoughts on the virtual magazine experience? And thank you, Suzanne. Okay, well, as I said, that's the end of my prepared materials. I'll put up my contact information, along with the one link that I needed to revise. So it's actually lam.alaska.gov/magazine shelf, and we'll have that fixed in the online copy of the slides. Although since that's on the LibGuide, you won't need it as badly there. So I really encourage you to try this out, find some links, put them on your web pages, put them on your public access computer pages if you want. If you have any trouble at all, either finding the links or embedding the links, or users finding that they're not able to access magazines from home, just give me a call or an email. Is there anything else from anybody? Okay, well, thank you all so much. And next month we're actually going to talk a little bit about creating web pages. It'll be kind of a subset of the pre-conference that we're going to be doing at ACLA. So if you know of librarians who don't have web pages yet, who would like library web pages, please consider sending them our way. Thank you very much and have a terrific weekend.